order. Further debate? I recognize a member for London West.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I will be sharing my time with the member for Beaches East York. Speaker, you know, shortly after midnight, we opened this session of the legislature with a singing of O Canada. And many of us, as we sung those words and we looked at our flag, we thought about what defines us as Canadians. And certainly our national anthem and our flag are big parts of our Canadian identity. But even more than the flag, even more than the anthem, is our Charter of Rights. The Charter of Rights is a profound part of our Canadian identity. It is our national bedrock. It is the thing that we are exporting to nations around the world who want to be like Canada, who want to have a Charter of Rights like Canada has. And, you know, Speaker, we've heard the members on the other side of this House kind of slough off their override of the Charter of Rights, this precious document that defines us as Canadians. It's just another tool in the toolbox. It's in the Constitution because it's supposed to be used. It's just, you know, something that it's there. The notwithstanding clause is there because we're supposed to be regularly overriding our Charter protected rights. Well, Speaker, that is not why the notwithstanding clause was written into the Constitution. That is agreed to by Brian Mulroney, Bill Davis, Roy McMurtry, Roy Romano, Jean Chrétien, 80 law professors who signed a letter that's circulating today, more than 500 members of the legal community who also are gathering signatures on an online letter. Everyone agrees that the notwithstanding clause is to be used sparingly. It's to be used only in extraordinary circumstances. It's not to be used, you know, on a regular basis at the whim of a premier to override our constitutionally protected rights and freedoms. And, you know, Speaker, the members on this side of the House may think that this is just another day on the job when they bring in a notwithstanding clause, but we don't agree, and the people of Ontario don't agree either. And I also heard earlier today, I heard the members over there talk about what a historic moment this is in Ontario. Well, you know why it's also historic? Because for the first time ever in their history, Amnesty International has had to condemn a level of government in this nation because this PC government under Doug Ford has decided to invoke the notwithstanding clause. Amnesty International has condemned this contemptuous step of disregard for the Charter of Rights that this government's use of the notwithstanding clause displays. And Speaker, I rise today as the member for London West, and I want to say this is what has got the people in London West so concerned about Bill 31 and the actions that this government has taken. And I want to read some emails that I have received from constituents in London West who really don't have a stake in the size of Toronto's council, because this isn't about the size of Toronto's council. So here's one email I received. While he may have won the election, he certainly does not have the mandate to change the very fabric of our political system, nor our Constitution. Once this Pandora's box is opened, there will be no going back. Another email says Doug Ford is attempting to establish a very dangerous precedent, and we must make every effort to let him and his government know that this is simply not acceptable. Another constituent writes, this Conservative government seems to regard the Charter as only a threat to its agenda, and it defines democracy to only consist of majority governments unfettered by courts, constitutions, or charters. Another constituent, I am astonished at the behaviour of our Premier and his irresponsible decision to invoke the notwithstanding clause, as it is an affront to our Charter rights and a waste of public money and government resources. And finally, I want to read the final email because it does reflect another feeling that people in London West have as they watch this, the antics of this government. This constituent writes, I do not want to have the notwithstanding clause invoked because of Toronto's size of City Council. This matter does not affect other parts of Ontario and should not take up time that could be spent on more important matters. And Speaker, you know, we all learned about the government's decision to invoke this clause on Monday, last Monday, World Suicide Prevention Day. I was at an event in my riding, and I suspect other MPPs were at events that day, and I listened to dozens of people at this event read the names of their loved ones who had been lost to suicide. We're living in a province where we have 12,000 young people on wait lists for access to mental health services. Many of them are waiting over 18 months. We have people dying of suicide on a regular basis. We have a crisis of mental health. And instead of taking action to address these issues, this government is wasting precious legislative time by pursuing this Premier's petty revenge plot against Toronto City Council. And you know, Speaker, before I was elected, I was a policy researcher, so I have been struggling to try to understand the policy goals that this government thinks it's going to achieve by Bill 31. And, you know, we hear all the time the members on the other side talking about reducing the size and cost of government. Well, Speaker, you know, if the rule is that there should only be the same number of councillors as MPPs, then are we talking about in London we're going to have only 4 councillors in our municipal government because there's 4 MPPs? Are we talking about in St. Thomas we're going to have 1 councillor because there's only 1 MPP? In Woodstock, 1 councillor because there's 1 MPP? Strathroy-Caradoc, same thing, 1 councillor, 1 MPP. Sarnia, 1 councillor, 1 MPP. I don't think we're talking about that, Speaker, but that's what you know, this government's action implies. Are we saying that there should only be a maximum of 25 politicians? You know, that's the absolute maximum in order to ensure efficient decision-making. Well, Speaker, in my neck of the woods in southwestern Ontario, we have a number of 2-tier governments that the City of London works closely with. We have Oxford County. In Oxford County, there are 48 elected politicians. In Middlesex County, there are 50 elected politicians. In Elgin County, there are 39 elected politicians. In Lambton County, there are 67 elected politicians. So is this government saying that we need to reduce the size and cost of those local governments in order to save government money? Now, I don't know if that's actually the hidden agenda of this government, but I do know that people in southwestern Ontario are concerned that it might be, and they've heard comments that have been made through the media.
So the side conversations are getting to be quite distracting. Recognizing it's been a long night/morning. If you're interested in having side conversations, perhaps you'd be interested in relocating to both sides of the room, please. The member will continue.
We've heard comments that have been made in the media through the Premier, who went on the radio and said he's been getting calls from all over the province, concerns about the size of government. We heard him talk about holding local governments accountable so that they can maximize their budgets and respect the taxpayers. So, you know, I think that people who you know, live in small and rural communities across this province are right to be concerned about what's next from this government. And in particular, we heard the member for Niagara West in an interview with his local paper acknowledge that the size of regional government is part of an ongoing municipal government review by the Tories. And he talked again about the importance of reducing the cost and size of government. You know, Speaker, I want to quickly conclude with some words of warning from our local media. And our local media is not like the Toronto Star. The ownership structure is much different. However, our local media, an editorial last week says, Ford endlessly reminds us that everything he does is for the people. But for the people who live outside of Toronto, the size of that city's council is less relevant than the price of cod. His fixation on a purely local Toronto matter creates the uneasy feeling that this government is going to be Toronto, just like the last one. PC supporters are the ones who should be most concerned about how their guy has gotten off the rails. Another editorial states that by pursuing Bill 5 to the bitter end, Ford is revealing the same kind of narrow ideological determination for which Premier Kathleen Wynne became known. This will be your legacy. Live with it in 2022. Thank you, Speaker.